Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a review of the 1999 rock comedy, Detroit Rock City. Now, before I get into my thoughts on this film, I want to give a very special shout out to Brock for requesting this review, as well as a few others. And if you have a particular film you would like me to review or a topic you would like me to discuss, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description. So without further blabbing, let's discuss Detroit Rock City. Now, this is one of those movies that I went into it with really low expectations, and ultimately I thought it was a so-so decent movie. There are definitely worse ways to spend your time. And there's definitely worse films from the particular era that this movie was released in, from the late 90s, early 2000s. But I can't lie and say that I wasn't ultimately disappointed by this movie. I thought this could have been a lot better. This is one of those movies that has a really fun, cool concept, but it's just an utter failure in terms of meeting its expectations. It's one of those movies where it just does not execute things as properly or as efficiently as it really could have. It doesn't rock as hard, and it doesn't rock as long as its potential. And that's just so frustrating, because you have a movie that has elements that really do rock, but then you have these other things about it that just bring it down to just an average level. And this is one of those movies, to me personally, that with a different director and with a much better screenwriter or screenwriters, this film could have been a classic. But that's just me personally. I know this has a cult following. I know there's a lot of people who really enjoy this movie and really like it just the way it is. And I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I just felt that this did not really hit the right notes. And it really kind of fell flat. But despite that, there are set pieces that really do work, and I really did enjoy it. For a comedy, I don't think it's really as funny as it could have been, but there still were at least a few sequences that I did laugh at and really did find quite entertaining. It does feature some decent, solid performances. The direction at times is really inventive and creative, and honestly pretty impressive. And like I said, I like the concept. I like the idea of a film that takes place in the late 70s, in the heyday of Kiss mania, and dealing with that whole environment, that whole atmosphere of that particular era. I like that. I think that's a really fun concept. But I just feel that there's a much better film underneath all of this, because you had a lot of people who were heavily involved with this movie that I don't think really gave it the fullest extent of effort, or overall. I'm trying to think of the right word. I mean, it's definitely effort. Effort is definitely one of them, because I felt that this script in particular was very lazy. It was an incredibly weak screenplay, from characterization to how things unfold in terms of the plot, in terms of any kind of depth. And I understand why I'm not asking for this film to be a pretentious, deep movie full of deep thoughts. But I felt that there were a lot of opportunities here that were missed with this story that really could have made it resonate on a much deeper level, and would have made it really rock in a way that could have put it on a much higher pedestal, and really would have rocked the socks off the audience. And to me, the way that the film is, it doesn't even rock one sock entirely off. Like it rocks like one sock like halfway off your foot, but it doesn't rock it, any of them all the way off, and it doesn't blow your speakers out either because it doesn't rock hard. It's called Detroit Rock City, and even the rock elements feel pretty muted and other than the nostalgia stuff. You strip away the nostalgia of this movie with people wearing Kiss belt buckles and you seeing Kiss on stage and having the Kiss band be the focal point of this story, or one of the points of this story, because it really isn't the focal point of this story, and Kiss is just seems like they're in the background in their own movie, and that's easily one of the biggest disappointments about this film, is how Kiss is handled in this movie. I mean, this poster is fitting because Kiss is way, way, way in the back on this film's poster. And that honestly is a great way to describe how Kiss is used in this movie. You hear maybe 4 Kiss songs throughout the entire soundtrack and the entire movie. A huge missed opportunity not to have the entire film just feature Kiss songs. Like, it's produced by band members of Kiss. This was marketed as a Kiss movie in a lot of ways. It's a coming of age story about these teenagers who are going on a road trip and trying to get tickets to see their favorite band, Kiss, at the height of Kiss mania in the late 70s. Like, this is not... It's one of those things that's like, it tries to be more of a stoner comedy than an actual Kiss, nostalgia movie, and it's like, why the hell do we not have more Kiss in this Kiss movie? There's like 4 Kiss songs. Kiss only plays on stage for like less than 5 minutes. I mean, I'm not kidding around. Like, the concert scene is less than 5 minutes, and they play one song on stage. And on top of that, your 4 leads, they don't even get to meet their idols. So you have a film like this, which is wish fulfillment, all, Kiss fans finding a way against all odds to go to the Kiss concert and see their favorite band live, and they don't even get to meet their idols. Like, what is the point of having a film like this if you don't have that element to the story? It's something that's expected with these kind of films. And I get, okay, they did something differently because they felt, oh, that's cliched. But in this instance, the cliche works because this is a fantasy. This is wish fulfillment for teenagers and for Kiss fans. So why not? And then you also have more Kiss in your movie than like a little peck on the cheek. Yeah, this really is. This movie has like a peck on the cheek of Kiss. Like, Shannon Tweed seems like she has more screen time than the entire band. And you're like, what? Why? I love Shannon Tweed, but why does it seem like she has more screen time than the entire band Kiss does in this movie? Yes, there are Kiss dolls, there are Kiss advertisements, there's Kiss pinball machines, there's all this other Kiss stuff. But when it comes to the actual band members on camera and on screen, it's not even, like I said, it's not even 5 minutes. And the way that the film ends, I guess they think it's epic, but it just feels like the movie just stops. And it just feels like it's unfinished to me. Like they ran out of money or something. And if that isn't bad enough with, the fact that you have this almost dearth of Kiss in this Kiss movie, you have the Kiss element of the story when it comes to the Kiss mania. It's not as over the top as it really honestly could have been. They really should have steered hard into how absurd and how ridiculous and how crazy popular Kiss was at that particular time period. Poke fun at it. Really just satirize Kiss's image. And I understand the band was heavily involved with this, so they probably would not allow that. But it would have been nice to have seen Kiss allowing a screenwriter or allowing somebody to poke fun, have some fun with it. Because let's be honest, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I like Kiss, but Kiss is ridiculous. Let's be perfectly honest here. If you don't think Kiss is ridiculous, watch, Kiss Meets the Phantom in the Park, and then get back to me, because that's just pure ridiculousness and silliness, and that's really honestly one of the biggest selling points about Kiss is how ridiculous and over the top they are in terms of their image, in terms of their concerts, and I think the film really could have emphasized that more. Also, when it comes to the satirizing things, I'm not asking for it to be mean spirited. I'm not asking for it to be like a absolute destruction of Kiss, a deconstruction of Kiss. I think it would have been nice to have seen a balance of the satire of Kiss's image during this particular time period, and then also showing why people love Kiss so much, why Kiss was so big, and why people were able to look past that and still like this band despite them wearing this makeup and doing all this theatrical stuff on stage and just being you know totally ludicrous and ridiculous. I honestly would have liked to have seen that dynamic is missing in this story and in this script. um but yeah, I could not talk about this movie without talking about Kiss, because Kiss is such a big part of it, and they feel like such a small part of it, and that's just not the right vibe for this kind of movie. It's directed by Adam Rifkin, and Adam Rifkin is an interesting director because he's directed things like Psycho Cop Returns, The Dark Backward, and then this movie. And he did all that stuff before this. He directed episodes of a show called Bone Chillers, which in a lot of ways is just a cheap knockoff of Goosebumps. And Adam Rifkin is a guy that you can tell from his work in this movie, he knows how to direct, but he lacks other elements, other abilities that a really accomplished, genuinely good or great director has. He's not consistent when it comes to his direction. He'll knock your socks off with some really inventive camera work where the camera's soaring around and flipping around and moving in really unique directions. But then he'll have other shots that look incredibly stock standard and look like something you'd see on a sitcom. So you have a movie that cost $17 million, but because of the direction that at times is really fluid, really cool, but then at other times incredibly flat, it looks cheaper than it really is. Then you have, on top of that, you have the cinematography by Mark Goldblatt. I mean, not Mark Goldblatt was one of the editors, and I'll get to the editing later. I got a bone to pick with the editing. John R. Leonetti, he directed. He was the cinematographer, the director of photography for this particular film. And he's a capable cinematographer. He's done cinematography for a lot of genuinely really good movies, and the cinematography looked every bit as flat. There really weren't any moments of the cinematography where I was like, "Whoa!" It looked like cinematography that was just standard, average, everyday cinematography you'd see on an episode of That '70s Show. So, yeah, that was definitely disappointing as well when it comes to the technical aspects of this movie. So the direction, it's inconsistent in terms of its quality. The cinematography is bland, average, run of the mill. And also the director Adam Rifkin, he's not accomplished enough as a director to really like get the most out of all of his actors. So there are a lot of performances in this film that either come across as too restrained or too over the top or too much mugging, or one of those things where you have an actor who really needs to rein it in, but the director doesn't know how to rein him in, so he just lets him run loose. And as a result, the film suffers because the illusion, a lot of these, the things that the films do, especially with characters and performances, is completely shattered because now it's not a genuine performance, and then you don't buy into the character. And if it's a main character, it's a pretty big problem. And I'll explain more of what I personally feel that problem is soon enough. But yeah, the direction, it's just as mediocre as the film is for me personally, and that's too bad. And also, there's a lot of moments with the high energy direction that is just kind of irritating, and it's got this cartoony kind of Mad Magazine kind of vibe, and maybe that's intentional because look at this poster, it looks like something straight out of Mad, but it also kind of doesn't fit. It's just one of those things that's like, I don't know. It's there are some sequences where it works and it adds to the mood and makes things a little more manic and a little more high energy. But then there's other sequences where it detracts from them because the camera work is already over the top enough as it is. The editing in particular is already over the top. So then when you have even more frenetic camera work on top of that and frenetic acting, it just becomes way too frenetic. It just becomes out of control. And speaking of out of control, I personally feel this screenplay by Carl V. Dupre, other than a few moments here and there, is an absolute fucking car wreck. Like this is like the tour bus just going off a fucking cliff. Like this screenplay is easily the biggest thing that holds this film back from rocking hard and long and really being a genuine classic to me. And the reason why is this guy is completely inexperienced. This is a huge case of nepotism by Adam Rifkin. He got Carl to write this because Carl wrote pretty much every episode of Bone Chillers. And that was all he ever wrote. That was all he ever did. So you have this film that has Kiss's involvement and a $17 million budget, and you bring in a screenwriter who has never written a single fucking movie. He's never written a comedy. He's never written a throwback film. He's never written a drama. He's never written anything. He's only wrote episodes of a cheap Goosebumps knockoff. That's all that guy ever did. It's pure nepotism on Adam Rifkin's part. That's the only reason why he got the job. There's no way he got the job any other way. There's no way. And it shows from the dialogue, which is very hit and miss, from the fact that there's a lot of jokes here that don't really land, from the scattered structure of the film, which feels like it's just weird little vignettes of different characters doing different things. The fact that all the characters are incredibly one-dimensional and are just your typical cliche teen stereotypes, but Carl's not clever enough to do anything with that. Like, if he was clever enough to take these stereotypes these teenage stereotypes, you know, the stoner, the rebel, the shy, reserved guy, the sensitive teen, you know, that kind of stuff. If he was there and he took those cliches and had them in the film and had these characters deliberately one dimensional so he could satirize and make fun of those cliches, then that'd be clever. But no, he's not clever or smart enough to do that. So they're just stock one note characters. They're cardboard characters. And Edward Furlong and Sam Huntington, they do their best to try to make these characters come to life, but they only barely start crawling, like, or you know, maybe say a few words, like but they still are clearly cardboard, and that's because of the script. It's just a really lame screenplay. Cool concept of a group of four teenagers who are super big fans of Kiss and their misadventures and their journey to see the band live. All right, fun idea. Simple but effective. But the characters are stock cardboard. The overall plot is meandering and isn't consistent in terms of how things are structured. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of moments that are way too convenient to the point where it's just like, really? That's what happened? Okay. But then there's legitimately some fun ideas. Like how they get into the concert ultimately. That's a pretty fun concept, and it's executed well. The opening of the film with Jam's mom, who thinks she's just gonna sit back and relax to a record of the Carpenters, but it starts playing Kiss, and she's just freaking out, and just the overall craziness of that scene is funny. I legitimately really like that opening sequence. How they introduce the four main characters in their basement playing Kiss songs badly instead of, you know, this them playing them perfectly or whatever. I like that. I like the approach that they had there. It's a little bit more real, a little bit more gritty. Um, the moment where the four teens face off with the Guidos, uh, who are giving them crap because they like Kiss and so on and so forth. That's a fun sequence, and that's a crowd pleasing moment when Edward Furlong knees the guy in the nuts. So there are moments in this that really do work. When Jam finally tells his mother off at the anti-Kiss rally, and gets her to give him his drumsticks back. And then there are some moments too once they actually get to see the concert and the spectacle and everything of it. But a lot of that's just few and far between. There's other stuff with the script that either tries too hard or things just don't really click, don't really work too well. The whole stuff with the boarding school and the Joe Flaherty character, you know, the Philip McNutty, I just thought that was a little bit too on the nose in terms of look how silly and crazy it is, to the point where it just wasn't funny to me, because there was no subtlety whatsoever. And another clever thing I want to give credit for is how initially they think they got the tickets back, but then you find out that they didn't, and then they still have to find another way to get the tickets. You know, that was pretty well done. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff with the screenplay that I don't know, it just doesn't really register for me. Like the whole stuff with the Lex's character Giuseppe Andrews, that whole moment with the car strippers and the dogs was just like, that was just ridiculous and just a pure total fantasy. There's a lot of moments in this that are just way too much slapstick, and I guess I'm not a super big fan of slapstick, so that doesn't help. But you have a lot of moments where it's just like to the point of just absurdity, really, just absolute absurdity. And maybe that was intentional, probably was, but that just didn't work for me. But really, where the film falters the most is with the characters. I don't think they're strong enough to really care that much whether or not they actually get to see kiss. And that really sucks. And when you have a film like this, you need to have characters that are strong, that you root for, that you want to go along for the ride with. And I felt, other than Edward Furlong and Sam Huntington's characters, and even they were pretty pretty cardboard. The other two, though, in your main group, were really poorly written, and as a result, to me personally, were quite poor characters and were incredibly weak and hurt the film in terms of its pacing and also in terms of my overall enjoyment of it, because whenever the film went to focus on these characters, it fell apart. Because I'm like, okay, when you have Sam Huntington, when you have Edward Furlong, even though I think the scene where he throws up for what feels like an eternity into a pitcher of beer, I just thought that was gross and awkward and not funny in the slightest. But still, that was, even with that throw up scene, that whole scenario at the gay bar was more entertaining to me because of Edward Furlong than anything with Giuseppe Andrews, or especially the character of Trip, played by James DeBello. This character sucked. I hated this character. He was obnoxious, he was annoying, and on top of that, he was a fucking asshole. So he was written in a way where I think they were trying to make him the lovable stoner, but they forgot the lovable part. He's just a stoner. And really what they added instead of the lovable aspect was just pure assholery. And this guy's just a fucking asshole. Like, he's one of his ideas is to beat up kids for their Kiss tickets. And understandably, his friends, when he first announces it, they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then he still goes along with the plan. And we're supposed to be like, yeah, beat those kids up, Trip, kick their ass. Steals their Stretch Armstrong doll, ties into something where he somehow stops a robbery, but then it never leads to much of anything except for tying into how they eventually were able to get the tickets to get into the concert. But a lot of that is just pure coincidence, because all these things happen to fall into place. But yeah, there's this whole drama, this whole sequence of Trip just goes on way too fucking long with the convenience store, and I did not give a fuck because I didn't give a fuck about this character. In fact, I was all for Chongo kicking his ass. I'm like, kick his fucking ass. He deserves it. He's a fucking asshole. And he's a dumbass. He's the reason why they had to do all this shit to begin with, because he's so fucking stupid. He wins a radio contest, but he hangs up the fucking phone before he's able to get the tickets because he doesn't tell them what his name is. And it gets a little cheap little laugh out of the audience, but at the same time, it's like, this guy is thick as a fucking brick. But the film, the way it's written, is trying to portray this guy as this cool stoner guy. And I no. He's the opposite of cool. He's annoying, and he's an asshole. And I don't even know why he's friends with the other three guys. He has no chemistry with any of them. That's another problem with this cast. They have no chemistry. They're supposed to be four really close groups, four really close friends, and they don't really have any chemistry. They don't have Stand By Me chemistry, or Goonies chemistry, or Monster Squad chemistry, or any chemistry that you would expect out of like a teen film like this. And they have the chemistry of the cast of That 70s Show. So yeah, that's disappointing in a lot of ways. But yeah, I just hated Trip so much. It was a terrible character, And it didn't help either that James DeBello blew dogs like Disco Express when it comes to his performance. He's a shitty actor playing a shitty character, and I don't know what the producers were thinking trying to make this character be a wannabe Jason Mewes, but that's exactly what this character is. Down to the beanie, the long hair, the way that he acts. It's just a half-ass shitty Jason Mewes impression for the entirety of the running time. And it's inauthentic, it's not genuine, so it's honestly pretty cringe-inducing to watch. And yeah, DeBello, for all the time he said all this disco blows dogs for quarters, you blew dog for quarters. With your just mugging with the camera so goddamn much, you might as well be made out of porcelain and have a fucking handle. Oh, dude, I'm a stoner. Look at me in his faces like I'm a stoner, dude. Yeah, I'm a fucking stoner, man. Dude. Yeah, get those kiss tickets. Oh, why don't we beat up some kids, man? Beat up some kids with kiss tickets. God, I hated that fucking guy. But yeah. Then there's Giuseppe Andrews' character, Lex, who has next to no character development. Like, he has the least amount of character development among the entire cast. You know that his mom is an OBGYN doctor, and her car is the one that they're borrowing to go to Detroit. And that's really about it. That's all you know about him. It doesn't help either that I thought Giuseppe Andrews' performance was incredibly flat. I mean, steamroller flat. Every time he delivered a line of dialogue, he sounded like he was bored, or he had a stomach ache or something. And then the sequence where he's supposed to be cool was just so embarrassing because his line delivery was so flat and bad. And this is when, if you had a better director, you'd have the guy come in and be like, hey, can I get some more energy out of you? Because this is supposed to be a cool sequence, and here you're delivering these lines, you know, like you're on fucking No-Dos or some shit. Like, wake up, man. Like, this could be your big break. But yeah, those characters sucked. Did not care for those characters, and they're two out of the four main characters of your movie. Then you have like a score by J. Peter Robinson that is... I like J. Peter Robinson, but this score was way too epic for this movie and didn't really fit. Then you have the editing, which is egregious, by Mark Goldblatt and Peter Schenck. I wanted to shank Peter for this editing. It's just annoying with a capital A, with cartoon sound effects, you know, wipes, and all this other stuff. Didn't add anything to the movie other than pure annoyance, and it was just irritating to watch. And then you have the cast, which some people, like I said, I actually thought Edward Furlong did a really good job with what he had to work with, which was not much at all. Sam Huntington, I thought he did a solid job too as Jam. Giuseppe Andrews, dead-eyed, dead acting as Lex. James DeBello is tripped over his own dick for the entirety of the running time. Lin Shaye was good as Mrs. Bruce. Jam's mother, she always plays roles like that really well. The overprotective mom. Melanie Lynskey as Beth and Natasha Lyonne as Christine. I thought they were really good, but they had barely any screen time. I honestly would have liked to have seen them have more screen time than what they got in the movie, because I thought they did a good enough job to warrant that. And then you have some other actors and actresses in the cast, but that's really your main cast is these four guys, and two of them sucked. So that just does the film a major disservice just by that alone. Yeah, it's one of those movies where I know it sounds like, because of all these things that I'm like listing off that I didn't like about the movie, that I didn't like it and I didn't like it at all, but I did have some fun with it despite those problems, because I liked Edward Furlong and I liked Sam Huntington and I liked Lin Shaye, and the moments where it did kind of it veered into the ridiculousness of Kiss was fun. The opening credits sequence created this really great vibe of nostalgia that the film never really captured again, but it still was a really fun sequence, and a great song too, Love Gun. And I felt the Kiss elements were not beefed up nearly enough as they should have been, and the script really was something that needed more thought put into it, needed another voice, needed another writer or two, anyone other than the guy who just did Bone Chillers. Um, and for a $17 million film, it looks cheaper. It looks like it costs like less than half of that. The concert scene at the end feels very small, no matter how hard the editors try to beef it up or amp it up. You can see right through it. And yeah, it just has this vibe and look and feel of like a TV movie 80% of the time. And that's, if that's what if it was a TV movie, if it was a made for VH1 film, then that whole vibe and that whole look, excuse me, that whole approach wouldn't be as egregious, wouldn't be as bad, because it would be understandable and acceptable. But this movie cost $17 million, so I know it's not a huge budget, but it's big enough for it to not look like a TV movie or an extended episode of That 70s Show. But that's just me personally. It's one of those films that I think it really should have focused on being more of a nostalgia driven teen drama with comedy, but instead of being a stoner comedy, you know, be a little bit more sophisticated and then have some stoner comedy elements, but have satire of Kiss and their image and their brand, have a satire of the cliched teenage stereotypes and characterizations that usually appear in these kind of movies, and have more Kiss. Why is Cheap Trick in the? Why am I listening to Surrender by Cheap Trick when the four lead characters first arrive in Detroit? Shouldn't you be playing like Detroit Rock City or some other Kiss song instead of Surrender? But that's just me personally. I've honestly talked about this movie longer than I thought I would, but I don't really know what else to say about Detroit Rock City, except if you like the trailer, if it's a film that interests you, if you're a big fan of Kiss, give it a watch. Who knows? You might like it a lot more than I do. And yeah, not the worst, but definitely not the best film out there. Could have had a better performance. Really could have rocked my socks off, but it just fails to do so. And that's what's just it's an okay so time waster because of the elements I mentioned, but it's still ultimately disappointing because of all of the missed opportunities and the notes that it just completely misses or glosses over. But anyway, thank you for watching my review of Detroit Rock City. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.